So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order because we have more than a quorum present. And although, maybe I'll wait just a moment because Elizabeth Patterson needed to rejoin. Mike Campbell's trying to join and hasn't quite yet. And we do have a few members who I know are going to be absent, but we also are still missing a few members. So let me give it just another minute and then I'll mention who is on the committee in lieu of a roll call, and then we'll jump right into the meeting. Welcome, Mike. I see you've joined us now. Good to see you.
Thank you.
So understand and welcome, Deborah. Great to have you join us. So let me go ahead and call this meeting of the National Heritage Area Management Plan Advisory Committee to order. And we're meeting via Zoom. I think everyone knows the Zoom drill. In lieu of going through a roll call, let me just indicate who is present, and then if I've somehow missed you off my screen, I'll ask you to chime in. So we will shortly have Vice Chair Elizabeth Patterson. She was here a moment ago. She needed to log out and rejoin again. Michael Campbell from Clarksburg is here. Paulette Henham from Cortland. Matt Holmes from Stockton. Douglas Shaw from Locke. Carol Jensen from Brentwood. Janet Lake from Freeport. Michael Moran from Oakley. Deborah Kustik with the Delta Conservancy is here. Gia Moreno from Hood. I believe Trevor Rice is here from National Park Service. David Stewart from Stockton. Welcome, Elizabeth Patterson. Just caught you in the roll call. John Takakawa from the Sassoon Marsh is here as an ex officio member. Jan Vick from Rio Vista, and Jean Yokotobe from Ileton. Did I miss anyone in the roll call on the committee? And then I'll mention our usual cast of commission staff and consultant team members. Okay, well, we have a very healthy quorum, so thank you, committee members, for joining. We're joined today by myself, Blake Roberts, and Natasha Nilsson from the commission, and then Augie Carlino, Nancy Morgan, and Carolyn Brackett from the Point Heritage Development Consulting Team. And Katie Metro from California State Parks, also part of our consulting team. Did I miss anyone in the introductions? If so, please chime in at this point. I don't see that we have any members of the general public joining us, but if we do have any members of the general public who would like to make a public comment, this is our place on the agenda for that. Public comment and opportunity for members of the public to address the advisory committee regarding items not on the agenda. Okay, hearing no public comment, let's move on to agenda item 3, an opportunity for advisory committee members to provide updates to the committee. Are there any advisory committee members with updates on activities in the Delta, or maybe publications of new books? Carol Jensen? Here's a chance to plug that thing.
Well, I'd like to share with everybody that on the July 9th, we will have a consortium of 13 Chinese heritage locations descending upon Locke. So this is going to be our first in-person meeting. And the consortium was formed like beginning of this year, and basically is people like Fiddletown, the Folsom, or Oroville Chinese Temple, all these locations. So because we thought that so many of these locations are so remote, and that the caretaker are not exactly connected. So we decided to form this consortium to sit together, exchange idea, and share resources. So this is going to be the first meeting, and it's going to be exciting. That's one thing, July 9th. And then I think HBO, Lisa Ling is doing a production on the Chinese culture in the Chinese culture. And they are coming to Lock on July 8th to do the shooting. So a lot of activities going on. Yes.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, Douglas, first off, keep us posted on the fate of the production that is filming, but the July 9th meeting sounds great. And are all of those entities California-based?
Northern California.
Wonderful. Well, that's great. Congratulations to you for that. I think that'll be a real fruitful gathering.
Yes.
Carol Jensen wanted to add something.
Thank you. I was fighting with my computer here just to let people know if they have an interest. The East Contra Costa County Historical Society has a book published just this Monday called Ghost Stories of the San Joaquin Delta. It's available now for people who love ghost stories. So come one, come all. But perhaps more equally important, the city of Antioch is initiating a program and acknowledging the Chinese that lived in Antioch during the time of Pancho Villa. That is, the Hickmont the US government provided safe haven in Antioch, Oakland, and I think Stockton for Japanese warriors that fought with Pershing against Pancho Villa in northern Mexico. It's a little known bit of Chinese history in the Delta. Who knew we had Chinese warriors? I think Chinese. Perhaps they were Japanese, I'm not sure. But if anyone knows anything about the Japanese or Chinese warriors that served with Pershing's troops in northern Mexico fighting Pancho Villa, please get in touch with me. These warriors were not able to go back to Asia. They were literally stuck in the US and had to essentially be hidden from persecution. So Antioch, Oakland, I believe Stockton is where these people ended up. And we're talking about 450, 500 men who basically lived in purgatory for the rest of their lives here in the Delta. The 150 in Antioch were housed in labor camp at the Hickmont Cannery in Antioch. So this is obscure as we can get, and we'd like to help the city of Antioch honor these incredible Asians that helped the United States during the Mexican-American War. So exciting history in the Delta.
That is really fascinating, Carol, and I continue to be amazed by what I'm learning about our area. Thank you for sharing that.
May I respond to Carol?
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
Regarding the warrior, I mean, I don't know anything about it, but on June 17th, there was a ceremony of apology being made by the city of Antioch to the Chinese because they drove out the Chinese and burned the Chinatown.
Yeah,
So
this is all part of that.
I attended the ceremony, and but they didn't mention anything about the war against in Mexico. Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first.
Okay. Yes, I will follow up on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks you too.
Eric,
Yes, Mike, please.
Just quickly on the progress on our 1883 schoolhouse. It's now elevated 13 feet in the air. We've just finished pouring a foundation underneath it, about 2,500 square foot foundation that's 12 inches thick. And the next step is to build 12-foot walls and then place the school on top of the walls. So hopefully by the next time we meet, I'll be able to report that the walls have been built.
That's real exciting, Mike. Yeah, I see a lot of thumbs up and hands clapping silently. That's great. Best wishes with your continued progress on that.
Thank you, Eric.
Any other reports that people would like to offer at this time?
I've got a new publication in this month's Soundings magazine. It's a Indigenous history timeline. If the chat is enabled, I'll put the link in.
Yeah, would you please, David? And the chat should be enabled. Just pipe up if it isn't. But I think I toggled that switch off on the Zoom. And while others might be thinking of last minute items, I do want to report on a couple of exciting items that were funded in what's called the baby budget bill, passed by the California Legislature. You know, this has been such an unusual year. There's a lot of general fund revenue that wasn't anticipated. There's a lot of federal support coming down to California. And some of this actually ends up making its way to the Delta. So I was really pleased to learn that the California State Lands Commission, this is unrelated to our work here, but I'm leading up to that. The California State Lands Commission was granted $12 million to remove abandoned and derelict vessels in the Delta. That is a huge down payment on a big problem with primarily commercial craft, anything other than personal boats that are sunk in the Delta. And so we will be learning more from the State Lands Commission, but if you're a recreationist in the Delta, that's going to be a very welcome news. And then in addition, related to our committee, two appropriations of note. One is that the city of Pittsburgh received a grant of $400,000 to assist with their renovation of the California Theater, the historic California Theater. And then this one will be of great interest to Carol Jensen. State Parks received a $1.4 million allocation for the John Marsh House. And I don't know a lot of those details. Yeah, I'm guessing that it's because State Parks put a number of items on kind of a wish list for, deferred maintenance backlog. And I don't know what that will do at the John Marsh House, but it's obviously going to do something that'll hopefully get it in better condition to be open to the public.
So I have my hand up, but you can't see it because.
Oh, Elizabeth, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's really great news. Just to follow up on that question. So we have the only middle class historic house in California at a state park. And I'm wondering if it's on that list. And do you have a link to that list?
I will send it to you, and I can send it to everyone. It was just an Excel spreadsheet, and I quickly went through it. It's possible I might have missed something, but I was looking for any Delta-related jurisdiction or any description that sounded Delta-related.
It's the Fisher Handler House. It was a hotel, and it was moved next door to the state capitol. So we're outside the boundary, but you know, it's historic, and it is the only middle-class house in California state park system. But my real piece of information is, I said this at one of our subcommittees, and the city of Venetia, through a settlement agreement with Amports, applied over $800,000 to finish the renovation of the Venetia train depot, which is in the boundary for the National Delta Heritage Area. And that will be to provide ADA access, which is one of the problems currently, to what's called the luggage room. It's really a huge space. And it's uncertain exactly how it will be used, but the main thing, the most expensive item is getting that ADA access. So, so there you are.
That's great. And, you know, and I will recognize Mike Moran and Trevor Rice here, but real quickly, seeing this list of projects makes me think about next year's budget, if we're in a similar fat and happy period. Any of you with projects, and I'm looking at you, Mike Campbell, and a few others, you might want to work with your local legislators and make sure that they have in their hip pocket any specific funding requests that could complete a project, especially a project like the Clarksburg Schoolhouse and a handful of others that are pretty well thought out and where you've got a pretty good sense of what you need to complete the work. So just an FYI, there's plenty of time to prepare for that. But I was very surprised by this list of specific earmarks that came, that were part of this, what they call the baby budget bill, not even the big budget bill. Mike Moran and then Trevor.
Everybody, thanks. A couple of things here. I just saw this, some folks may have seen it too. Water Education Foundation actually has a job available for a programs manager. A lot of great stuff in the Delta. So just to give everybody a heads up on that. I am no longer working at Big Break Visitor Center at the Delta. I've made the big move to a management position while we're overseeing 5 different work groups, but I'm still staying very much involved in different Delta assignments. So you'll still see me, but we'll get a chance to meet a new supervising naturalist, hopefully the next couple of months. So we'll bring them up to speed and get them involved as much as possible. And speaking of Big Break, as we loosen up restrictions, please keep in mind Big Break Visitor Center as a meeting spot, either for this esteemed body or for other things that folks might have going on in the Delta. Let's see. Oh, and the chat is disabled. So Douglas, could you put information regarding the HBO film crew in the chat? There's something that we can look up. And I think Eric, you could have put something else there. Maybe David was too. So we can, yeah, enable that chat. That would be great.
Yeah, I think it should be open to everyone, but am I mistaken in that, David? You're shaking your head, David. Does that mean no?
I just tried, it's not working for me.
Yeah, it's still,
it
still says disabled.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Try it now. It probably was set up and I turned it off. I'm not very great with Zoom sometimes. Okay,
thanks very much.
Well, Mike, congratulations on your new position. I sure hope we continue to benefit from your interest and great enthusiasm for the Delta region. And
thank you.
But congratulations too. That's wonderful news. And for any of you who have not been to the Big Break and seen their facility there, please do take Mike up on his offer to host meetings there. It's really a great venue, and we have used it multiple times and always appreciate the warm welcome we get from Mike and his crew there. Go ahead, Trevor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention, and now that the chat's open, I've dropped the link in the chat for the annual commemoration event at Port Chicago. Thanks, Matt. I just want to let folks know that the sign up link, the RSVP link, is available for that for folks who may want to attend. We are having to limit the number of folks who are attending the event this year to ensure space for social distancing. We should still have, I believe, up to 150 folks available to attend that. Otherwise, the event will be recorded and the link will be put up likely within the first few weeks after the event for folks who can't be there physically. They'll be able to watch it online.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trevor. Anything else or any follow-up questions? We take a little bit of time on this, but I think it's such a great opportunity to share information. I have learned a handful of things from this part of the agenda. Okay, well, you'll have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to make an announcement if you forgot something, but let's move from this part of the agenda to item number 4, which is an update on the NHA advisory task groups. And Katie and Carolyn, the floor is yours.
Is Katie there? Oh, there you are. Do you want to go ahead and go first, and then I'll go next.
Sure.
Okay.
Everybody else is on vacation, lucky them. So I'm representing State Parks today, and I am going to follow up on that on the money that we got for the John Marsh House, because that's something that I'm interested in too. So that's good news. We had, I think, 4 or 5, I think it was 4 task group meetings for the interpretive plan. And we got an extraordinary amount of great information, and our group has created a workshop summary that we'll hopefully be sending out to you guys soon. It'll have all of it's a combination of everything that we received, just kind of categorized and put into a document, and then the summary of how each session was run and things like that. So you'll be getting that soon as a record of where we are so far. We have further refined the topics, and we're now working on really fleshing out those themes. And so the next step after that is to meet with various folks at the historic sites in the Delta to get some of their feedback. And we're also going to put out a questionnaire to get some information on what people are doing now for interpretation. So what programs they're doing, what social media sites they use, and get some of that existing interpretive data. So that's the next step. So, and then you'll see when we get to the point we're starting to dump things into our draft document, how it all fits together. So yeah, it's really exciting, and I would love to learn more about all these amazing topics. So hopefully we can get some movement once the plan is published to see them come to life.
Great, thank you, Katie. Yeah, any questions for Katie? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Well, thank you. Carolyn.
Sure. So hi everyone. I think I've seen most everybody in the last couple of weeks at one of the task group meetings, and so I wanted to report on those, but also to say I really enjoyed being a witness to all the interpretive task group meetings, and the energy and the information in that task group was remarkable. The other 2 task groups that have just gotten up and running also have hit the ground running, and lots of energy and great insights already. So thank you to everyone who's participating on the task group for just jumping in and getting things moving. So the Heritage Development and Tourism Task Group met on the 21st, and the Resource Stewardship Task Group met on the 28th. And for both task groups, we started by talking about what the roles and responsibilities, and clarifying what each task group is going to be responsible for, but that also, along with the interpretive task group, that at some point all of these will merge into goals and strategies for the management plan. So we started by talking about some of the goals of engagement, and what we mean by defining heritage development, what kind of tourism we're talking about, as well as resource stewardship, and how that connects through preservation or conservation. For each task group, we shared some examples from other national heritage areas, and that seemed to be really well received. I think we'll probably continue doing that, because it gives just some ideas, and to see what your fellow national heritage areas are doing. But we use that as a jumping off point in both task groups to talk about projects, just as we've been doing in the last few minutes, some of the projects that are currently underway or in development that the National Heritage Area might become involved in at some point. The two activities that are getting underway this summer were the focus for both task groups. The first one being the resource inventory, which is a requirement of the management plan. So we talked about just the basics that we know we'll be doing this spreadsheet format and connecting information on sites throughout the Delta region to the themes and other types of information that we'll be collecting. A potential format that we talked about that seemed to generate a lot of interest, so we'll be investigating that further to see if we can make that happen, is the idea of a story map. The National Park Service has done that for a feasibility study recently, and we shared that as an example, as well as lots of other uses that a story map format might be useful for both internal purposes of tracking and even things like keeping up with grants, but external at some point to an external audience. And once we have all of this data in that format, also being able to use it for other purposes. The Heritage Development and Tourism Group even mentioned, the idea of an app, a tour of the region. And so having all of that documentation, what we'll need to look into now is that the feasibility of doing that, not just getting it developed, which of course is possible, but what it will mean long term. Is it possible to do that, and how what the requirements would be to keep that going long term, keep it up to date, keep it accurate, keep it current. So we had real good discussion in both task groups about that. The other topic that we talked about was civic engagement. With things opening back up, our goal is to have the first public meetings at the end of August. That last week, we haven't set the exact dates yet, but that last week of August 30th, September 3rd, to have the first public meetings. And we want very much to do those in person. We're also planning to do an online survey and stakeholder interviews. So both task groups, we had really good conversation about what do we need to think about and keep in mind as part of the civic engagement process. What are topics that we would want to talk about in public meetings or in interviews and other formats. One of which is considering capacity. That came up in one of the task groups, thinking about when we get to the point of selecting projects and programs, what's the capacity, commitment, engagement of the public to be involved in those. We also talked about thinking about ways to focus on increasing awareness of all of the resources and getting cities to begin collaborating with each other, engaging diverse populations. And we talked about in the resource stewardship group, we talked about the idea of maybe having information tables at the public meetings at the entranceway where the cities could come and set up to give out information and talk with people about what's going on in their community and help people begin to get to know the whole region. We also talked about the importance of keeping in mind the sensitivity of some issues, some topics that may come up for discussion, things that we'll want to be prepared for and be able to address. In the Heritage Development and Tourism Task Group, we also had wonderful presentations on the Great Delta Trail and on the Visit California Delta marketing that's underway. It was really great to connect both of those efforts, which are tremendous and have already accomplished so much with the National Heritage Area, and begin thinking about how all of those activities can work together. So the Resource Stewardship Task Group will meet again in August. Heritage Development and Tourism will meet again in September. So we'll be setting those dates soon and letting everybody know. Also, following both meetings, I took all the notes and input and have started tracking charts for both. So whenever someone mentioned a project, either underway or potential project, I'm starting tracking charts so we can keep up with those. So if it's a year from now, we're sitting down thinking about projects and programs, we won't be trying to remember what we talked about a year ago. And so hopefully that'll be a useful tool. So I also wanted to ask, Mike Campbell is here and Gia Marino. Mike is the chair of the Heritage Development and Tourism Task Group. Gia is the chair of the Resource Stewardship Task Group. So I also wanted to ask if you all wanted to make some comments.
Same with Douglas too.
Thank you.
Do you have comments?
Carol. Yes, thank you. I thought our first meeting where we're just starting to put things together, there was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of good ideas. We're depending on Carolyn and Nancy to keep us focused and directed. But for our first meeting, I thought it was excellent. And I want to thank Carolyn, Nancy, and Blake.
And Gia, did you want to say anything about the Resource Stewardship Task Group?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought it, like Mike, I thought it went well. We had a lot of really good ideas, and it was exciting to get started on the project. And I would like to thank all of you as well for all the hard work that you're putting in to make this happen. We really appreciate it.
Douglas, I believe you're also a chair of the interpretive task group.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything?
Okay, yes, I'm ready. Yes. Well, I think we had two very effective sections, and I'd like to give kudos to our very cool tool, the Padlet, because we work with so many different themes. So the Padlet tool is able to get us to, because so many of us give so many great ideas, and then the Padlet tool was able to just get our ideas organized in all these different themes. So that's great. And of course, I mean, Katie and Carolyn, you guys are very effective leader. And now I think I'm waiting for the summary coming from you guys, right? Yeah. So one thing I'd like to add is, because I mean, so many people brought up so much histories and ideas, and we just realized that our indigenous group is having a separate group. So, I think the sentiment of our task group is that if we can combine some of the meetings with our indigenous group, then that would be great. Yeah.
No, that was all I had, unless anybody has any questions. Thanks.
Great, thanks for that report, Carolyn and Katie. Appreciate that, and for the task group chairs reporting as well. Unless there's anything more on that, let's move to agenda item 5, which is a visioning session on our Delta National Heritage Area. And the Point Heritage team is going to lead the discussion on this. So Carolyn, Nancy, and Augie, I'll turn it over to you.
And Augie's actually gonna lead this one, so I'll turn over to him.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Carolyn. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. Eric, I will say to you, I got excited when you announced that grant for Pittsburgh, because I thought it was Pittsburgh at first with an H and not Pittsburgh, California, right?
I always say Pittsburgh CA instead of Pittsburgh PA, but I forgot to do that this time.
Yeah, well, no, that's all right. I knew what you meant after you said the name of the theater, right? I'll try and get a theater renamed here and see if we can't.
Yeah, seriously, we need a California theater everywhere outside of California.
There you go. There you go. So tonight we've built into this agenda a visioning session that we'd like to get you all to roll up your sleeves on and work what we hope is going to be fun and exciting for you all to help work with us to maybe recreate, re-envision, amend a tad or not change at all if you all don't see the need to do that. Starting with tonight, a vision statement that exists already for the National Heritage Area. And then, as Carolyn pointed out, as all those task forces will be doing their work and completing their work, that information rolls up into management. And one of the things that that Management Governance Organization Committee will do, and then also do working with you all, is refine, recraft that visioning statement if necessary, and then determine if there's a need to make any changes to the mission statement now that you're a National Heritage Area. And so we have that all posted on the Jamboard that Blake had sent to you all both in an email, and we had put a link into the chat earlier, which I hope everybody has seen. But I'm hoping that you all can bring up that Jamboard, and we will be able to have a conversation about your vision for the Delta. Does everyone have that link? There it is again, Blake. Just
yeah, everyone, if you go to your chat function, and I think everyone is joining via computer. If anyone is joining by phone or doesn't have the chat function available, chime in and we'll email it out to you real quick. But it's the very first message in the chat. Blake posted it right at the start of the meeting.
And we just did again, Eric. So it's at the current part of the list on chat. Okay. Everybody sees that, right? I trust. You all have to say yes or no. I'm hoping.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't have access to it, just chime in and we'll figure out a way, because this would be a great way to get all of your input. We want everyone to participate in this.
I can see a lot of people up top with all those interesting animal icons appearing. That each one of those represents you for some reason. I don't know if you have a choice to pick it, but Google picks it for you. So if you all remember, good, Eric, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say we're almost there. We've got 17 people on the Jamboard and we have 22 on this call. So
okay.
Looks like we have 20. So I think we've got critical mass. Why don't you go ahead?
We're good. Okay. So if you all remember how to work this, and I hope you can see my pointer moving on the board. On the left side, these are the controls that you all can use. The one we're going to be using tonight, for the most part, is this sticky note control. You click on that, and that will bring up a sticky note that you will write something on, and then when you save it, after you save it, it will appear on this page, right? That's how we're going.
Augie, I think it helps if you share your screen so that we can see it happening in real time. Everybody is doing it in real time, but you share your screen.
Okay, well, I don't have the host capabilities at this point in time.
Go ahead, Augie. You should be okay now. Sorry about that. I'm just not great with my Zoom controls here.
That's
it should be good for you now.
Let me close this down, Eric, and get back to where I'm going to share screen, and then bring this up and share. And can you all see that now as I'm sharing screen? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We're getting better at this. You know, as soon as we all master it, we're all going to be back in person, right? And everything will just be put on the shelf and forgotten about until, I don't want to say the next pandemic. I hope we never live through that. Anyway, we're going to be working with these sticky notes right here. And those are on the left side. So you will click on that, and we're going to ask you to put your thoughts in there so that we can collect all of your comment on developing and enhancing a vision. Tonight, there are two slides that are here. First one is mission, second one is vision. We're not going to do the mission statement tonight, but I need that there because this is a work in progress that involves both of these that get developed, not necessarily simultaneously, but one after the other. But for no other reason other than to read this mission statement. This was in the the feasibility study. And it says that the mission of the National Heritage Area is to recognize, enhance, and promote the Delta as a place to help cultivate and retain appreciation and understanding of the Delta as an ecological, agricultural, recreational, historical, and cultural treasure. That's the mission that came out of the feasibility study. That mission's a part of what the Park Service examined and Congress examined in developing the legislation to create the National Heritage Area. Also in that feasibility study was this vision. Now, just as a backup, everybody knows missions set the stage for what the organization does. Visions are different, and sometimes we all get confused with the vision statement. The vision statement, its intent is to be a forward thinking, a projection of what is going to be the end result of all your work, either at the end of the life of your organization or after a certain period of time. And for us tonight, in our exercise of what we have to do for the management plan, we're looking at a certain period of time. Your authorization life is 10 years. That's what this management plan will focus on. So this vision that we want to brainstorm with you is what you think, what you want to see the Delta as after all of your work is completed in those 10 years. Okay? And we want, there's a couple things that you want to do. You want to dream big and you want to focus on success, right? The outcome of not just planning, but the outcome of the expenditure of the project and program money that you have. All the money that hopefully that attracts, not only by way of grants and programs and projects that you will be doing or that other state agencies might be partnering with you on, or other nonprofits or local governments might be partnering on. You want to have that in the back of your mind, right? Because the success of heritage areas are partnership based. The best ones are the ones that work with multiple partners to get projects done. The other thing yes, sir.
Augie, can I, one of the things, people are having problems being able to edit the Jamboard. So I'm not quite sure if right now they're in view only. So I'm not quite sure if there's some way for you to be able to share that with others, or at least allow others to edit.
Augie, Matt Holmes just put some good instructions in the chat on how you can edit your share settings if you're the one who set it up.
Well, let's, Nance, can you talk about this a little more while I look at that? Because I don't want to hold anyone back, right?
I was so busy. I didn't listen to what you just said. I was so busy trying to solve the problem behind the scenes.
Hey, folks, there's nothing new about that statement that Nancy just said. She doesn't listen to me anyway.
So I was busy texting Blake in the background.
Just make it up.
So.
All right. Well, I can type if you all want to do that. I hate to delay you all.
I think it's better to try to go into edit the share settings if you can take, a minute to do that, because I don't think we'll be able to very quickly. There you go. And Matt, if you want to chime in and kind of be his native guide there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So at the bottom where it says get link, you gotta click change on the bottom left. Click, keep going left. Anyone with a link, now click on viewer. Up above the done blue
right
box.
There?
Sorry, you did it fast enough. Click that to editor.
Editor. Got it.
Wunderbar.
That's interesting because Blake and I were working on this earlier, and he was able to do it. So that must have changed out.
If you had shared it, yeah. If you shared it with him directly.
Yeah, it was working.
Now
so are you able to do that now?
Even
woohoo, let's go. Let's do this.
All right, Matt. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So are you able to do that? You all able to do that?
Uh-huh.
Let's see one pop up there, right? Because we're going to work with vision. Let's think forward and describe to me the vision. I love Jamboard too when it works. Describe to me that vision of the Delta after all your work in this 10-year management plan? What is it that you want to see of your region, of your communities, of your economy, your preservation, your cultural conservation, your interpretation? Let's just throw this all up here, because again, tonight, this is the beginning of this process. It's not the conclusion. We're not writing a vision statement tonight. We're collecting this all so that we can do it as we move through the rest of the project. You all have to have some ideas.
And if anyone is still just behind the, not getting it to work, all you have to do is hit refresh, and then the things on the side will show up for you. Sorry, I stopped your flow there.
That's okay. No, I'm glad you said that, because if that was an impediment for people not being able to pull up we are testing it, I can see.
Perfect.
Is it possible to make it bigger? Because I can't read what's on the Post-it notes. I don't know if it's possible to enlarge it. I'm afraid to start clicking on stuff, because last time I did
let's see, Carolyn. Right now I've got it on fit to screen.
Perfect. Yeah.
Is that large enough? Is that bigger for you? Yep.
Yeah.
And Carolyn, you can just hover over it and grab, there's a little bottom corner toggle, and you can stretch it to whatever size you need it to be, the Post-its.
Oh, the Post-it, okay.
You can increase the Post-it size yourself.
Oh, actually, I just realized I can increase the whole thing. There's a little line here you can drag over, and it makes everybody's picture smaller and makes the poster bigger.
And so if I do this, does that change it for you, Carolyn? Or
that's good. That's good right
right
there, because I just made the whole thing bigger, so now I can see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Excellent. So what we have up there, people saying, I had no idea all these wonderful things are in the Delta. A unified feeling, I apologize, a unified feeling, a destination known throughout the country. A place of history, people, places, and endless possibilities. I like these. These are really good. Identity by Delta residents and interests that they are a part of this thing. And change will be to are. We're making a specific edit in that, right? This is your vision statement now. I'm going to ask you a question as you guys think forward. And I'll read it to you. A regional network of partner sites with interpretive educational components that will be linked where possible and serve as the primary attractions on existing public properties or on private properties with the voluntary consent and involvement of the landowners. That's your vision when you develop that as a part of the feasibility study. Is that the vision that you want to create in 2031 for the Delta?
You know, one thing I'm wondering, this really speaks just specific, like to individual sites, like destinations, attractions. But when we were talking in the resource stewardship task group, I think Elizabeth, you were the one who brought this up about wanting the cities and the towns themselves to feel connected and involved, so that it's not just like a scatter shot of a lot of sites all over the place, but it's a feeling of community throughout the region. So I'm not sure how to say that, but that was, I thought, such a great observation. So Elizabeth, I'm probably not doing justice to what you said, but I was trying to capture it because I thought that was such a good observation.
Thanks. Trying to remember what I said. So the concept is that the cities, if they were better connected, they would have some sense of ownership, and rather than being reactive and kind of passive. And so that was the intent of that statement.
So Elizabeth, in the intent of trying to better connect everybody, you could say, and I'm not saying this to put words in your mouth, you could say a connection of working together sites, but I don't want to lose that too as part of the mission, because if that's a mission to work to better connect those communities, right? That could be something that we throw on the other slide for another meeting when we come back to work on the mission statement.
So, right, but for the vision statement, you said it's forward-looking. And so the forward-looking part, what we want to achieve is that the cities are engaged and there is that ownership.
Right, right. Or we did, is that up here, or should we put that up here?
I can add that.
Okay. We also have up here a vital place for California's economies and ecosystems that cannot be saved for future generations without a transparent and honest process for embracing our collective history. Who put that up there? I wonder.
That was me. That wasn't a rewrite of the vision statement, but that
no,
was
it's
just,
all right. No, Mike or Matt, I was wondering if you might elaborate on it.
Well, I just think that, you know, there's a ton of valuable cultural resources and environmental resources out here. And they are asymmetrically used and appreciated. And that really sort of this is a heritage area. So rooting how we relate to those services in, you know, our history, sort of centering history in this vision statement is what I'm hoping to look for. And I see a little more history in the mission statement, although it's later. So, you know, I'm kind of a history Puritan. So it was just an idea of finding a way to center the language around heritage preservation. And
there's no, that's quite all right. And after all, that's what heritage areas in part are developed around, right? Yeah. Below next to that, cities should be, oh, there we go. That's what, is that you, Elizabeth? Cities should be connected to have ownership of Delta history resources and people.
Yeah, and I think people are using the word agency these days, but I don't really like it. So I stuck in ownership.
What was the word you said you don't?
Agency. Everyone seems to be using the word agency.
Okay. Okay, all right. Beneath that, add recreation, economic, natural, cultural, and historically significant attractions. Add that to this statement if we're going to amend it.
I think the other thing, I've been wrestling with how to do this because I kind of come from that public trust resources thing. We don't want to love it to death. And so we want to be really careful that how the vision that we go forward, we don't wreck in the process. And I was trying to make that as a positive thing. And to me, the positive thing is that public trust resources that need to be managed with stewardship responsibilities. But I'm afraid that some people might interpret that public trust as some sovereign interest in land. So maybe others can help out trying to make sure that we recognize this is a fragile area and so it requires that careful stewardship.
Are you talking about, and I'm not asking this to be critical, we talk about heritage areas as being living landscapes. They talk about the past as much as they talk about what's going on in the present without changing the use of the landscape necessarily by what they do. Is that what you're inferring to?
Yeah, close to that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you love it because of what it's doing, and you want to make sure that that's a continuation of its heritage and culture.
Right, and somebody said at the resources meeting about the problem with too much traffic. So you could create additional problems by getting too much traffic in because of the visitor interests and what have you. So that has to be thought about as we move forward. But I like what you said about the landscapes, and then also keeping in mind that we still want to have business activity within the Delta boundaries.
Right, right. Maybe what we'll do is we'll reshare after this meeting that definition of what national heritage areas are, and it talks about them being living landscapes, right? The difference between conserving in a sense of not putting a bubble over top of it, but providing stewardship so that it continues and you still have a respect for that history and heritage as an element of that past, but that doesn't impede your ability to move forward with anything.
Right, and then one last thing is that the reality is that some people like to try to please everybody, and you can't. There's going to be a part about the stewardship of the Delta that means we won't be able to please everybody, and I think that reality would be really helpful.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I would agree with managing expectations like Elizabeth is recommending. I'd also challenge this group to recognize that the Delta is asymmetrically enjoyed. And that there are definitely privileged communities that enjoy disproportionate access to the Delta. And that very much this is about addressing those asymmetries.
Somebody wrote, and I can't see who's talking now because I minimized that part of the view in order to see the screen. So who said that? I'm sorry.
That was Matt.
Oh, Matt. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Somebody said 3 words, thriving place region. Who put that up there? I don't mean to pick on you.
That was me. This is Trevor Rice. I read this statement as it's currently written and it feels dry to me. If it's a vision statement, I feel like I want it to be, I want it to inspire. And so I feel like this was my attempt at saying, what language can we add here to really bring this vision statement alive? You mentioned again that a NHA should be a living landscape, and the vision statement doesn't currently read that way to me.
Okay. Thank you for explaining. Mike, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just reading this vision statement. It just struck me with all these great sticky notes. They're all talking about specific things about the Delta. And this vision statement seems like it can apply to any national heritage area. It doesn't mention the Delta. So
very good
exercise.
Point. Yeah, very good point. Well, I'll reserve comment on the vision statement and as we develop it further on the next sets of meetings that we go through.
Hey, Augie, could you, we still have a few people that are struggling a bit. Can you use your cursor to go over to the sticky note icon?
Right there?
Yeah, did everyone just see that? And by the way, does this screen look like your screen? I guess I'm talking specifically to Douglas and Jan. Are you seeing this icon?
I just got it.
Great.
Just 3 minutes, just 15 seconds ago.
Okay,
right here
Douglas.
is where that sticky note is generated from.
And then Jan, does this help you at all? Are you seeing this these icons on the left edge of the screen?
I'm seeing them, but I can't access them.
Huh. If you put your
Nothing
cursor.
happens. And if I do Control-Shift-P for the sticky note, it doesn't do anything.
Jan, do you want to say what you want to say and I can type it in for you?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Augie, this is Mike Campbell.
Hi,
and I would like visitors to leave with a much greater appreciation of the Delta as a treasure.
Shall I type that for you, Mike?
I've got it, Augie.
You do, okay.
Yeah, I cannot get in either. I mean, it's more than just this vision has to be more than just a network of partnership sites. The rivers are not partnership sites, but they're such an important component of the Delta.
That was going to be my next question. As you look at that vision statement and as you're reading what everyone is posting, and as you all have worked through those task groups with such critical information coming out of them, have you covered all of the assets that you have and all the resources that you have that make the Delta such a special place?
We're just starting to work on that.
Yeah. And that's why this is an evolving process, right? We're not finishing this tonight. This is the beginning. This is to get you to brainstorm as we move you through those task groups.
Yeah, just as some context. Oh, shoot, Mike, I see your hand. Mission writing takes weeks, months, and sometimes years. And this is a lengthy process. So I appreciate that.
Well, you scare me with the years comment of it, but it does take a long time. And it can get emotional too. And that's a good thing, right? Because that means you as a person, you're invested in what you want to see the outcome of this process be. Mike, I saw your hand up. Did you talk again? I can't see who's talking because I've minimized the views of the participants.
No, I said my piece. Thanks.
You did. Okay. Blake,
Yeah,
I want to
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
see
go
any
ahead.
other hands raised, Augie, so you can
Okay.
proceed.
I want to make sure we're respectful of the time for this part of the agenda too. It was allotted for 30 minutes. I don't know where we're at in that.
No, I think we're okay, Augie. Let's continue to the discussion. I think this is
Okay,
real fruitful.
good. Will you, somebody just prompt me so that I don't violate that.
Yep, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the things that the wording that bothers me, and I think probably someone has said this, a regional network of partner sites is kind of, I recognize that the NHAs are built on sites, but I think the Delta is really unique that it goes beyond sites, specific sites. You know, there's so much here. Somebody said the Delta is a magical place. That is something I've tried to capture in my photography, but to me it really is. And so I think in our vision statement, if we could capture some of that magic that we do have. I don't have words for you, but it's just my comment.
No, but I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, and Jan, I think a super good point, and we certainly don't have to wordsmith it here, but I hear that comment over and over, and I agree. This is pretty dry language. I mean, this is kind of what would be in a document, and we need to, if we want it to be out there in the world, we need to express it in a way that jumps off the page.
Right.
So,
That's a good point, Eric, because this could be what leads to your marketing and promotion, right? And again, and I'll say this because you all are talking about this statement. I think this is a very appropriate vision for when you all were working on developing the feasibility study, because that was the outcome, the intended outcome of that feasibility study, in my mind, having worked on so many. Bringing together a regional network of partners to achieve some type of action that you're all going to work together on. But again, mission statements change, vision statements change as organizations grow. You've clearly attained a new level with the designation. You're now on to a different level of planning. So this vision statement might be a little bit outdated.
Deborah had her hand up, Deborah Kustik from the Delta Conservancy.
Yeah, one thing that's really striking me is I think we need to keep in mind the subject of the vision statement. So I'm seeing things where just different suggestions of saying it's visitors. Well, then that becomes the subject of the vision statement becomes visitors, which I don't think we're after, or it's, an experience so I think we want to keep the subject of the vision statement focused on the area itself. I'm not sure that's making sense. So if we say it's the region, then that's the heritage area, which makes sense. But if we're talking about diversity of culture, our vision isn't necessarily diversity of culture in and of itself. It's that the region is whatever we want to fill in.
Right.
So
That's
I wrote.
It's more a grammatical thing than anything else, but it does keep the focus where we hopefully want it to be.
But
Yeah,
the
I'm in
vision,
agreement
the
with
vision
Jan
statement
and-
could focus on the experience that is desired.
What I was saying is I was in agreement with Jan and what Deborah was saying too, and I could edit my piece, which I said the Delta is one of a kind place connecting California through rivers and activities, and maybe I could edit that to say people, diverse people or something, and culture, maybe just culture. But I think it is a one of a kind place, and it is magical in that sense. You know, there's no other place you can go in the entire world that is like the Delta. It just doesn't exist.
Other thoughts? We've got a lot up here.
Augie, my only other thought is that I think this should, as a vision, it needs to not get bogged down into the parts or the processes that get us there. We need to really focus on the end of all that. And so I think the visitor experience, the preservation, the appreciation of the resources, all those things are the vision that we're working toward. So I think, you know, I don't think we should get bogged down in the pieces that make up that end goal.
Thank you. We have a comment that just got moved that says for Californians to actually care about the Delta.
Good luck with that. Sorry.
Augie, I'm guessing you're
um,
not able to monitor the chat at the same time as you're running the Jamboard. So I
cannot see the chat. No, that's correct.
So I wanted to let you know that Katie is reminding people that vision statements are very, very clearly related to the mission. And she gave some good examples of vision statements in the chat. And I also wanted to add to that, reminding people what you had said earlier. This is definitely just gathering ideas. We're not trying to wordsmith. We're trying to see what people see the Delta as in 30 or in 2031. Right. And so then we will be having that interplay between mission and vision going forward as we look at them both.
Yeah, what we'll do with the next set of meetings is we'll share with you some other vision statements from heritage areas so that you could see what they have developed. Not saying that they're all perfect, but it may give you an idea of that. You know, and we'll share with you some vision statements from other organizations that are not heritage areas, so you can see how they've developed that.
So are you, you explain the process for this? Are you going to try to put together some options that incorporate these ideas or create a whole new vision statement?
Yeah, what we'll do, it got away from me a little bit today with some of the glitch. We'll try and group these together where there's some similarities so that they descend not necessarily in hierarchical order, but they descend, or they're grouped together in common columns, let's say. So we can get an understanding of a sense of which one, how all of these relate, you know, and then we'll come back with another exercise after we, the team, talk about these with the Delta Protection Commission staff. We'll come back to you with some ideas where we see some commonality here and begin to literally start the wordsmithing process. But again, Elizabeth, this is going to be an evolutionary process, right? Because these things sort of go concurrently with the rest of the development from the task groups and the plan recommendations. So while we set the vision as the goal, we may have to tinker with that in its draft form depending upon how those recommendations come out of all the task force of the projects and programs you want to do?
Well, as a person who's done a lot of land use planning, I typically would take the vision and make goal statements out of that. And so that, because it's really hard to capture all these ideas in one giant vision statement. So I know that you have a certain template that you're working with, but could we follow up with the goals then? That
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And all of this vision, mission, and goals will go into what the Park Service wants to see as your foundation statement. You know, that's the anchor that basically is the drive behind the whole heritage area, that foundation statement. And it's a combination of those three things.
And then I don't mean to dominate this, and so then the goal statements will be supported by actions that have to be done to achieve?
They could be, yes. Yeah.
And we'll use a lot of these. I want to make sure we capture this too. So Augie, let's talk, but a lot of these can be and end up being interpretive goals too. So you want people to know about the Delta and what's here and then learn about it. You know, that kind of stuff is all this is great stuff for building the recommendations for the interpretive plan.
Let me ask you a question. We think about heritage areas often, all of us, all heritage areas. We think about what we're projecting out, who we are, what we are to other people. How, if you're looking at this, what are you saying to the people that live in the Delta that you want them to work with you on to achieve? Some of that's here, but I just want you to shift that a little bit in your thought. Or what is it that you want to do to help the people that live there?
Hey, Augie, just doing a little time check. Were you similarly going to ask people to provide comments on the board for the mission statement?
No, we're only doing the vision tonight.
Okay, well, some of us were overachievers. We provided them anyway.
Oh, well, there you go. You're over there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's up there because I want you to think about them together, but we were only working on the vision tonight.
Good, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a few more minutes, but maybe in about the next 5 to 7 minutes, we could transition to the next part of the agenda.
Okay. Other thoughts or ideas, folks?
No, Augie,
we don't necessarily. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just to answer your question, as far as what I might like to have people in the Delta feel about this NHA. Number one, there's trust, that there's faith, that there's larger agency that's coming in from elsewhere, even though it is populated with local people. You have it's a national designation. It's a Washington D.C. thing, so that there's this sense of trust and benefit for people in the Delta. And I think Elizabeth made a great point that there are going to be some losers. There are some folks who don't like traffic, who don't like whatever might come of this. But to have some sense of trust and faith that it's a good.
Does everything that you do? I want to ask a question because you've said that you folks have said that a couple times, not just tonight, but other times when we were out there last year touring around. Does everything that you all do in your minds have an end result of increased traffic? Or does it have to? And I know I'm not explaining that, but you also can work as a heritage area in a way that respects the dignity and the sanctity and the exclusiveness of a place or community, and yet not promote it to anyone. But
well,
help
Augie,
those.
the problem with the traffic is that it's through traffic. And the state supposedly has a plan to not have it as through traffic, but it's not been implemented, and it just gets worse and worse.
So the through traffic is not necessarily something that's a result of your work.
No.
Is that
it's
what,
just-
am I
yeah.
understanding you correctly, Elizabeth?
People trying to get to Stockton from the Bay Area with avoiding Sacramento.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get from Sacramento to Antioch directly down the river,
Okay.
which has become a major problem.
Yes.
So Elizabeth is right. It's through traffic that has exponentially increased the traffic through the Delta, but they're not stopping to look at anything. They're just driving. And somehow we have to find a balance, because I think truly to appreciate the Delta, you have to slow down and stop. Stop for a sunset, stop for the sunrises. They're magnificent. But we don't want everything cluttered. I mean, these are narrow levee roads, and we have to respect that and deal with that. Get rid of the through traffic and we'll probably be fine.
Well, if they put all that stuff, all the trucks, and if you pulled the trucks off and put that stuff on barges, then you would help. It would help a whole lot.
Well, the trucks are mainly going east to west.
Oh,
there's very few big trucks except delivery that I'm aware of on the levee roads, on the smaller roads. Most of the trucks are on 12, which is a huge problem, but that's where they are. And what is on those trucks can't be put on barges. If they're going up the river to Sacramento, yes, they could.
We have
traffic to the port of Sacramento has also increased greatly in the last few months.
We have 3 hands up, but I want to ask a question. Could one of you, I heard you say something, you wanted to get people to slow down and stop. Could that be part of your vision? Yeah. So we have Janet's hands up, Matt's hand is up, and there was another one that was up that disappeared, unless it just moved off my screen.
That was
Janet.
That was Mike, but you said what I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. Well, Mike, we think alike. Is that good or dangerous? Yeah. Janet, you had your hand up.
Yeah, the commuter traffic right now that has been a problem. It's a current problem, but I think as we get more tourism, I think that's the elephant in the room that needs to be figured out. How people get from site to site and down the river and everything else. I mean, that is, to me, that's the elephant in the room. The capacity on the roads, whether it be put onto, we use boats, however it's done, especially with all the wineries, the cider houses and all that, right? I mean, how are you gonna move those people around, right? Through the Delta and with alcohol.
Yep.
It's just gotta be figured out.
Douglas, yeah.
Yeah, I think Janet's kind of getting at what I was getting at, which is, there's a huge transportation planning challenge with turning this into a destination. I also think the Delta has to become a thing. It has to become a destination, because right now it's a place where the first world Bay Area gets second world Californians to drive through it and serve it, right? We all live in Stockton and we drive to the Bay Area to flip their hotel beds and to run their cities and make their food. And then we drive home. That crowd like me, we're not going to stop for a sandwich on our way home to and from work. We got 2 jobs. So like the traffic problem is about economic inequality statewide. So, if we really want to slow down the scene here in the Delta, those bigger issues have to be addressed. And I don't see this heritage area addressing it. I think really increasing the clout and the power and the meaning of the Delta is what helps the Delta emerge. Because, frankly, it is not a part of first world California. The Delta is an afterthought. We just have a historic drought, and every region in the state got money out of the governor's budget except the Delta. So we're an afterthought. And I think that's why we're here, is to stop being an afterthought. So that's my 2 cents. I think some of these concerns are bigger than the Heritage Area Initiative.
Thank you. Derek, will you-
Douglas, and then we'll go back to Mike and Janet. Oh, you're muted, Douglas.
Sorry. Okay, I think the key is not to have people drive slower and to appreciate the view. I think it's about if you don't use the Delta as your thoroughfare. If you come to Delta, you come for the Delta. And I think one way to do it is like maybe we have to charge them some kind of fees to drive through the Delta. 2 cents.
Okay.
Mike and then Janet.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Actually, these are really interesting concerns and I think issues that are facing the Delta. And I think that I like the word that Matt was using. Somebody else was using it too, but just the words like recognition and realization, that we're not thinking about changing people's everyday behaviors like you were talking about, Matt. Like, you're not going to stop for that sandwich. But the idea is to have people recognize and realize that you can stop for that sandwich and have a really unique, wonderful, fulfilling experience because of the special nature of this place. And you can experience all these things that are going on, the good, the bad, the people commuting through, that you understand those stories to the Delta. So Augie, you had mentioned earlier on, does it necessarily mean that we are inviting more traffic? I don't know about that. That's an interesting thought, but at least inviting some more thought, or again, back to recognition and realization is what I'm thinking here. So it's a little vague, a little amorphous, but it's just the recent conversation is really interesting. Gets me thinking. Thanks.
Very good point.
That's great. Janet and then Gia.
I think that's a really interesting idea, Douglas, about charging people. I mean, I haven't really thought about, but that is definitely interesting. I know other places do that. And in all the residents and the people that I've talked to down here in the Delta with the tourism, that's their biggest fear, is all the traffic. That is the biggest problem. So it definitely, and having more tourism, more cars. So it definitely needs to be addressed. It's almost like a task force in itself, I would think. Anyway, that's what I got to say.
Thanks, Janet. Gia.
So I was thinking, I forgot who it was, but about the whole point of people not stopping. It's a lot of people that are just driving through are unaware of what we even have to offer. And if you're not from that town, like people don't know that you can go to Tony's in Walnut Grove, or that there's pizza there. That to kind of make those things more aware. And that might not be what a lot of people want, because like Janet was saying, because of the traffic, and she's in a pretty high traffic area. Hood's a pretty high traffic area for commuters, and like Janet was saying, and Doug, we might need to start putting like a toll or something, because all the traffic does take a toll on the levies and everything. And I do feel bad for the people that have to commute from Stockton to the Bay Area, or back and forth, or whatever, Sac to the Bay Area. But my feeling is that, like, why should I invest, or why should we invest so much of our resources and energy and time and feelings and have things taken away from us for people that like the guy from Stockton said, that they don't care about us. So I wouldn't be totally opposed to putting like a toll there.
Problem with a toll is that affects the very people that are having to get to work. And that the same problem exists with State Route 37. And
but if we put like that we like like a local thing where we don't have to pay the toll to go from town to town, but most people within the Delta aren't going to the Bay Area on a regular basis. So that's not really, you know, if they're commuting between the Bay Area and Sacramento and causing a ton of traffic and putting a detriment to, you know, to the harvest and all of that stuff, then that needs to be remedied before, oh, somebody needs a quicker way to get to work. There's other jobs.
Augie, we had Douglas with his hand up, and we're probably at about the point where we should bring this to a close, but go ahead, Douglas.
All right. In order not to burden the local people, well, the local people can register their vehicles, therefore they can come in and out of the Delta without having to pay. That's all.
Very good. Any other thoughts as we close this working session? Nope. Okay. So as I said, we'll start pulling these together, collecting them into commonalities of what are said, and we'll build into some work sessions that we will have internally, and then come back to you, not necessarily with anything drafted, but with ideas of next steps and where to go. And again, be prepared for this for the next couple of meetings, because these are all going to be converging things coming down to the end as we put together the final parts of the management plan. But I hope you all found this helpful and at least stimulating thought.
Thank
Good.
you, Augie.
You're welcome.
Any final thoughts that people would like to contribute before we lay this one to rest for the day?
I want to just say one other thing, real quick regarding the tolls. I think it's a really interesting discussion and points of view. Just in general, tolls, either they are excluding, or we're telling people it's going to cost money to get in, so some folks won't come in. You're making a statement about something, that you're paying for something to go through, and what is it that you're actually paying for? And if it's just the privilege of driving through, that may not be the message we're getting across. You're paying a toll like for a museum or a park, then we're not the working living landscape. I'm seeing this as an attraction of the day itself, not turning it into something that we just pay money to go see.
Eric, I saw Trevor Rice had his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to start this comment out by offering it as a solution, but there is, for some of the comments that I've been hearing talking about visitation becoming a problem, attracting visitors to a place, loving it to death, those sorts of things. Obviously, that's a problem that the National Park Service has been dealing with in many places for a long time. There are a suite of tools that have been developed to attempt to handle some of those concerns, some of those issues, and I can continue to offer some more information about those. There's one particular tool set that's been developed called the IVUMC toolkit that essentially talks through a whole suite of options about how to address visitor use management, how to set things like visitor capacities, how to address things like displacement from capping visitation in one area, moving it to another, those sorts of things, which seem to be around some of these themes that we're talking about. So I could potentially speak to those more in the future if folks had an interest in exploring how those works. The one piece to me that I wanted to, the reason that this comes to mind is that it seems like what a lot of the comments that I'm hearing are jumping straight to solutions without necessarily thinking through the resources that we're trying to protect and how the solution directly relates to protecting a resource and what threshold we're trying to set it at, some of those sorts of things. So there are some tools that we have at our disposal to be able to potentially use there if folks want to go down that road.
Thanks, Trevor. And Janet, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to say that the reason that people are traveling through the Delta for commuting is not because they just want to go through the Delta. It's because a lack of alternative routes or the traffic on the freeways. Okay, so I mean, maybe part of this conversation should be with Caltrans or something to, people are going to take a freeway rather than take a 50-mile-an-hour road through the Delta if they can. So that's, I think it kind of needs to be looked at as a whole, not just, why, that they're here, right? The reason why they're coming through the Delta.
Yeah, that's a good point, Janet. Okay, well, this was a really rich discussion, and I don't think we're going to be abandoning it for all time. I think we're going to be coming back to this. But Augie, is there anything more that you need before we call this to a close for today?
We're good. I appreciate everybody's time, thought, and interest, and it's going to be fun working on this as we move forward.
Well, great. Thank you for facilitating it, Augie.
You're welcome.
We'll now move to item number 6 on the agenda. This is the last business item, and this is an update on the federal funding and the NHA work plans. And I'll turn it over to my colleagues, Natasha Nilsson and Blake Roberts.
Hello, my name is Natasha Nelson. I'm the Assistant Executive Director at Delta Protection Commission. I just wanted to have you familiar with the federal process. So I'm going to share just a few slides about cash management, and then Blake is going to speak to the annual work plan, which is part of what we provide to the National Park Service. Any thoughts before I begin, Blake? No, okay.
No, that's good.
Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen. So there's just two things that are important from our cooperative agreement. It said that the local coordinating entity, which is the Delta Protection Commission, needed to have a matching share. A matching share is what is non-federal money for costs at the National Heritage Area, and that we try to accomplish the projects identified in the annual work plan with that matching share or with federal money. So this graphic is just showing you that for the commission, most of our federal expenses are the state labor. So time that Blake, myself, and Eric and others are spending on this are being collected monthly, and that is being both charged to the federal government, and then we have time that Augie and Carolyn and Nancy are spending as Point Heritage HTC in contracts and bills, balancing that out. So just to, to say it two ways, at least 50% of our annual budget is state funds or anything that we get in volunteer hours, and the other half is federal government. So every dollar in cash or donations that we get, we can match with federal money. The National Park Service tells us the reason they require a match is they want to share the federal government's costs for programs. And they want to share them with the state, local agencies, and the private sector. And that will promote sustainability of the program past the life of the federal financial award. So as Augie will probably tell you, as you get farther into an NHA, you need to come up with a sustainability plan, a financial sustainability plan, a way to continue all these great programs without being solely dependent on the federal government. So in general, when we are working on a match, we need to make sure that the things that we do in volunteer hours, our contractors, that we make sure it's documented and verifiable. And so I understand that Blake told you a little bit about a Google form that can help you document your hours spent on the NHA. We must evaluate that it was necessary and reasonable in order to continue the NHA and our work. The expense occurred during the work plan period. So of note, the federal work plan period always starts on October 1st. So we'll be starting our third work plan period this coming October. We have to screen any cash donations or time donations to make sure they weren't coming from or paid for by other federal funds. It should only be local dollars, state dollars, or private dollars, and or hours. And our preference is that matches are identified in the annual work plan approved by the National Park Service. This is in part because every January we're trying to find that balance. We want to know what was requested from the federal government for them to pay for and what we have as a match. So surprises are never very fun for us. So last January, we submitted what we knew were work-in-kind expenses. We had some contract payments and bills for printing, volunteer hours, and labor that we could not charge to our federal funds. And so coming this January, we'll be doing that again, kind of collecting everything we can. So it's better to collect as we go along rather than a mad scramble in December. I hope you all will enjoy your holidays and not be answering questions and queries from me between December 25th and January 1st. Hey, can you tell me what work you did last July? Because I need to put it into the report. So always try to feed that in to the hopper early and let us know what you're up to and what you can match in terms of hours or cash. And as I said, we will work hard to find a balance between what we're doing for work in kind, and which is non-federal, and the federal funds. And during January, we also document what we accomplished in the work plan. So if we published a map or we've been doing the Delta Forum, for example, then we always try to document how the success of all the production and events we've done over the year. So that's a general overview, and just to remind you of the importance of helping us get more federal funds by tracking your hours. So, thank you. All right, I'm open to any questions. I'll stop sharing.
Great, thank you, Natasha. I think where this leads is just, and maybe this is that was the wind up, and Blake's going to follow. But we do want to you to submit to us the time that you spend as volunteers, either working on this advisory committee, or there might be other volunteer-related efforts linked to the NHA. I'll leave that to Blake or even anyone from our Point Heritage team to describe that further. But to the extent that we can document those volunteer hours, that helps us greatly. We want to do so in a way that's not onerous to you. And that's been my request at every step, is that whatever form we develop, that it's a very easy one for you to use. But we do want to know about those hours. It's pretty easy for us to track the hours spent at these meetings because we know who's attended and we know how long they last. But if there's anything else, and maybe with that, I can Blake, I don't know if I'm treading on your territory here, but, or if you were wanting to say anything about that, but either you or the Point Heritage team, if you can speak to anything related to tracking work in kind, but we hope you'll be able to help us with that. It will help demonstrate not only that we're meeting the match, but that we're hopefully greatly exceeding the match, which is of course what the National Park Service and the federal government always want to see.
Thanks, Eric. And I will say that in talking to a lot of other national heritage areas, often they exceed what they need to do in terms of match. But obviously, you know, one of the things that we want to bear in mind is that you will have years, such as last year, that where a lot of the national heritage areas aren't able to provide as much match just because of things beyond their control. And so, you know, one of the things that we're going to be aware of when it comes to matching the federal funding is that you might have good years and you might have bad years. And so it's helpful to have sort of a, you know, something, you know, if you do anything or your organization's doing anything that's related to the mission of the national heritage area, then those are things that we can show the federal government that we're matching. I don't know if anybody from Point HDC wanted to add to that.
I think you said it all right. You're going to be able to, you can hear me. You're going to be able to match a lot, right? But I will caution you. The ability to match and what you can match is determined by your regional NPS office. Right now, there are not consistent rules across regions. And some regions can use certain match and some regions won't permit it. That's all a nature of how heritage areas have been created so far without some overarching program. Hopefully we solve some of that with a program bill that's advancing through Congress. But that said, one of the things you can do, let's say you put $50,000 as a grant, I'm just using that number, into a project that is being done by a partner. And let's say that overall project cost is $250,000. Well, even though that other $200,000 to make up that budget isn't running through your books, sometimes the Park Service region will allow you to count that money as match to your federal money. So there's a lot of interesting ways you can approach this.
Thanks, Augie. And I noticed that I don't know if Katie at least had her hands up. I don't know if she wanted to discuss anything.
I was going to put it into the chat, but and it's I review grants all the time, and I like for matches. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're spending time during research towards this project, like a lot of you have submitted timelines, it did help us to develop some of our interpretive things that are not part of the specific task group meetings. I think those count as match, so keep track of those hours too, and make sure you submit them. And so we like to see that because it's just ongoing work.
And Blake, may I, it isn't just hours, it also could be mileage too, right? At the volunteer rate that the IRS permits. So when we get back to in-person meetings, your time as a commission going back and forth and your miles are allowed to be used.
You get 2 cents per 100 steps to your computer that you can charge off as in-kind match.
We've got a match. What about historic sites that we're working on? I'm thinking about Douglas's work in Locke and the hours and the money. These are all going to be sites for the heritage area for people to come and see. These are going to be attractions. What about the work that's going into those on an annual basis, the time, the money? Can we count that?
Again, Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead, Derek.
No, you, Algie, I wanted you to answer that question, please.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to jump on. A lot of that will be defined in your annual work plan, right? So if that site is defined as a project for that year, then yeah, that will be. But if it's outside that annual work plan and it's a partner still working toward the heritage area effort, but it's not a part of that work plan, that wouldn't be permitted.
How do we get it in the work plan?
Well, you're going to have to spend money on it on that end for the work plan, right? So that will be something that Natasha and Blake and Eric will have to work on. But you can't throw everything into your work plan because the cost of all of that's going to exceed your appropriation. The work plan has to match to a degree what the appropriation is each year from Congress.
Yeah, if I could chime in at this point, because we're still in the management plan development phase, our appropriation from Congress is about $150,000 per year. And I say about because sometimes they might give us a little more. They have the last few years. Never been above 160,000. At that level, we're not going to have a problem meeting the match. Especially if we can log some in-kind hours from volunteers like you. Once we have an approved management plan, and we hopefully will be moving to a much higher tier of federal support, at that point, I think it would be helpful to be able to consider projects like the one you're working on, Mike, you and your colleagues in Clarksburg on restoring the historic schoolhouse, or any projects that might be occurring in the community of Locke. We'll talk about that internally. I think there might be more detriment than benefit from including you in our work plan because, you know, it might be in that category of be careful what you ask for. But at this point, we feel pretty confident that we can cover the match. Of course, it would be great to show Congress that we were matching 10 times over what they were giving us, except it's not going to really make a difference in what we get from Congress for this program. That's kind of already cooked in the books. And the only time that will change is once we complete our management plan. Blake, can I speak on any of that, or Augie, does that ring true to you too?
Pretty much so, yeah.
What's the value of 1 hour of our volunteer time?
Priceless.
Well,
there's two ways you can answer that. One, you can set that. Well, actually, there might be three ways you can do that. One, you can set that as a committee. If you want to say you're worth $50 an hour, or $100 or whatever, it's got to be realistic. There's also a volunteer. There's a website out there that provides values for volunteer time that you can use. And
what is
and
that
then
website?
I've got to find it, Mike. I will find it and get it to you.
You can send it to me. Great.
Yeah, I will. And then the third thing you can do, and I've seen this permitted, if you as a professional, right, calculate your rate for what your salary might be is, or if you actually charge your time out, sometimes they allow that to be used. You know, I've seen that happen with lawyers, and that rate can be quite high sometimes. And again, that when you get to that, a lot of that is going to depend not just on the Park Service and what they allow, but depending upon the back of the house auditing that occurs. You know, a lot of you as a DPC may not be audited independently, but a lot of heritage areas are nonprofits that get audited by accounting firms, and the auditors will, you know, shake their head and say, no, you can't take that high-end level match. You got to be, or rate, you got to be more realistic in it.
Yeah, for purposes of the NHA, I think what we'll likely do is, and Blake's probably already done this, we'll pull some of the other NHAs and find out what value they attach to their volunteer time. I think I saw the wheels turning in your mind, Mike, and you might have been thinking, how that could relate to your project in terms of the numerous volunteer hours that have gone into it. And I think for that, you're probably better off linking to an established methodology for volunteers' time, and we'll try to track down that website link for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Matt Holmes wanted to say something to
Yeah, I'll just be super quick. I just wanted to ask you, and you started to get to it, about taking the pulse of the other heritage areas, about keeping 2 sets of books on this. I understand you don't want to just overwhelm people with everything that's happening in the Delta in the work plan to show a $10 million to $150,000 match. But I do think we should be capturing what Doug and Mike are doing in an impact statement. I mean, I can just say here in Stockton, between us and the water people, we're doing tens of millions of dollars worth of work to protect water quality and air quality. And you know, those should be a part of the benefits of the heritage area and evidence of community buy-in.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Matt. And I think our tendency is always to underestimate what goes into an effort. And I'm sure that we have vastly underestimated everything being done out there that really does advance the purposes of a national heritage area. So we'll do better about figuring out ways to capture that without it being burdensome on, you know, you all doing the work, because we would need to obtain that information from you. So
Eric, may I just say, add one last thing? While you all were talking, I looked. So there is a current estimated national value of volunteer hours. This is an average of all 50 states. And right now it's calculated as of April 21 at $28.54 an hour. So you could use that if you want. But there's also, each state has an estimated value, and I would not be surprised if California's is higher than that $28.54. I haven't found that yet, but I'll look.
great, that helps, Augie. Thanks for tracking that down so quickly.
You're welcome.
And I will mention on top of that, that one of the things that National Park Service does ask us is information about the projects that we're doing and some of the effects that we're, you know, the positive things that we're doing in the region. And so even if it's not necessarily captured in the match that we get, we do try to advertise to the National Park Service exactly the kind of work that we're doing or that our partners are doing. And that way they're able to say, you know, these are the positive effects from the National Heritage Area.
Very good point.
Thanks, Blake.
Yeah, this is just the first year when we've actually had more than just the three of us, Eric, Blake, and I. So we look forward to having a robust reporting, but just wanted to make sure people jumped on it early. As I said, it gets busy in December, so do your best. Thanks so much.
Well, and I did have a few slides. I just wanted to at least talk about the work plan. This shouldn't take very long, but I just wanted to
go ahead, Blake, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So I did at least want to give people a sense of what goes on with the work plan and budget. And this is something that we prepare on an annual basis. Just a moment, if I can. So one of the things that hopefully everybody can see my slides right now, but I wanted to at least differentiate two documents that we have. There's the Cooperative Agreement, and that was initially signed off by the a couple of years ago, and that really sort of identifies what is the overall fiscal responsibilities that the Commission has when it comes to federal funds. And so that is something that is an agreement that lasts for many years. But the work plan and budget, that's an annual agreement, and that's something that we do every year to basically describe how we're spending the federal funds that we get and how we match those. And that is specifically for the federal fiscal year. So in case you can't remember this, the fiscal year starts October 1st of every year. And so basically, we will refer to fiscal year 21 or 22. And basically what that refers to is that whatever is the larger share of the year. So for example, FY21 for fiscal year 21 is basically from October 1st of 2020 all the way until September 30th of 2021. And so that's really how we identify. We're looking at it from that perspective of what are we spending during that time frame every year. So one of the things that we have to do when we do the work plan is that we have to look at the total federal and non-federal match spending. So what that means is that even though we might receive $150,000 in federal funding, when we do the work plan, we have to really describe how we're going to spend $300,000, not $150,000, because we have to consider what we are spending in terms of our match or how we're making that match every year. But one of the things I will mention here is that the work plan and budget process is flexible. There is, when you work with the National Park Service, they understand that, things do not always go the way that you plan every year. And so that way we're able to sort of, so even though, we don't necessarily have to do it to the exact dollar every year, there is some flexibility in how we are able to request reimbursement from the federal government or be able to show a match every year. So I just want to at least break it down into what kind of categories we deal with. Personnel obviously is a first item with us. I mean, primarily right now that personnel is the commission staff. But when you look at other national heritage areas, it might be a nonprofit organization that's doing that. That's where the personnel is coming from. So it varies from place to place. Obviously, you have any fringe benefits that are kind of on top of the normal wages. Travel, obviously, there's not as much travel going on this year, but frequently when we do, when we travel around the region, if we have to travel to other parts of the country for Alliance of National Heritage Areas conference, those are the things that we have to think about when it comes to travel. Obviously, consultants and contracts, that's those are things that we need to do because we often have to. We're not able to do all of our work in-house, and we have to contract with other agencies or businesses in order to do that. Other costs include sponsorships, memberships, grants, and obviously as we get farther into this process and we move out of the management plan process, grants are probably going to be a larger share of the money that we give out. But at least for right now, it's smaller, but it will be larger in the future. And then operational costs are obviously just, the overhead that we have to deal with as a state agency or other agencies have to deal with as a nonprofit. And so when we have all these different budget categories, we really break this into 4 different activity areas. And this is going to vary from year to year, but at least for the FY20 and the FY21 work plans, we've really broken it down into 4 categories. One, and obviously the first one that we're dealing with right now is the management plan. And so the actual process of doing the management plan is a very important activity area. And so that's how we kind of break down some of the work that we're doing. We also have operations, and that's simply, kind of the behind the scenes work that we have to do in order to comply with federal requirements and in order to just, run the National Heritage Area. There's also public outreach and partnership development. Obviously, that's one of the things that we're doing, with this process and also through other things that we're doing. We want to get out to the communities. We want to identify partners that we can work with in the future. And then the last one, and which has probably been referred to a little bit, is in terms of the Clarksburg Schoolhouse and the work that's going on Locke and other places, are early action projects. And those are projects that we're working on with different entities to sort of get things going and at least start moving with the work of a national heritage area, even though we don't have the management plan completed. So those early action projects are really the things that we're working on right now that can help, that sort of are starting to get progress in terms of what the national heritage area is doing. And then finally, marketing. And marketing is an important part of national heritage areas, because obviously one of the things that we want to do is be able to, this is part of what we're referring to either earlier was just sort of the visitor outreach. And we want to be able to sort of advertise to people what's in the Delta, what's there. And so things like the Visit CA Delta website and other platforms, that can serve as sort of marketing that we're doing for the region. So those are the activity areas that we have right now. And that's the extent of my presentation, but I at least wanted to let people know what exactly is in that work plan every year.
Yeah, thank you, Blake. You know, we really wanted to give you all a little bit of a peek behind the screen. I have to tell you, it's kind of an abattoir out there. And so it's the least unpretty thing working through the state of California process and working, no disrespect to Trevor, but you know, it's not the easiest thing to work through a federal process either. And anyway, we wanted you to see the least unpretty parts of it. If you really want to see some carnage, you can go behind the scenes with us sometime as we pull our hair out over this. And I really appreciate particularly what Natasha does on this. There's an enormous amount of brain damage that goes along with making this all work, and we appreciate greatly her work on that. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions about what we just presented. I think the important thing for you all is, and Blake will be your lead on this in terms of what we're asking from you in terms of cataloging the volunteer hours, and we will promise you, I promise you, we will make that as pain free as possible for you. And that's really the only way we'll get it from you, is if we make it easy. So that's our pledge to you.
And one of the things I do want to mention is I will be sending out a link to our TAM sheet, so people can fill that out when they get a chance. I should mention that, you know, regular meetings such as this meeting, you don't have to fill it out for. Really, we're just looking at those things that you're doing, you know, extra hour kind of work that you're doing that's helping the National Heritage Area.
Great. So more details to come on that, Blake? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, there will be. And when I send out all the information about presentations and all that, I'll send out the link to the timesheet as well.
Okay, we have crept past 5 o'clock. I apologize. I do want to give one last opportunity if there are any member announcements that you care to make at this point before we call it to a close today. Any other member announcements on the?
I do.
Yes, go ahead, Jan.
2 things. Rio Vista is coming alive. Our Hog August Bites is going to be August 28th, which is a chili cook-off and rib cook-off. And the Bass Festival is back October 8th to 10th.
That's really great news about the Bass Festival. And you said Hot August Nights, you call it?
Hog. August Bites.
Oh gosh, that's a tongue twister. Thank you. I'm going to check that out this year. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's been going, well, we didn't have it last year, but this is the 3rd year.
That's great.
And we have music and vendors and a car show, and it's almost a mini Bass Festival with food.
That's great.
Really good food.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jan. I appreciate that. And Matt wanted to announce something.
Yeah, I just brought up once before, and I wanted to follow up that the City of Stockton's Cultural Heritage Commission has reconstituted itself and is now establishing regular meetings. And so also the San Joaquin County Historical Society has expressed an interest in supporting the heritage area. So there is the opportunity to engage the City of Stockton if there's the will for that in this group.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. Okay, anything else? Thank you all very much for your time this afternoon. It feels like we're picking up steam on this, and it's real exciting.
Meeting.
When we next meet, we will kind of start to poll you and see if we can figure out a way to get out of these damn Zoom squares. Or maybe we love the Zoom squares and we want to stay there, but we will reach out to you and inquire, because we're increasingly going to see things returning to an in-person mode. Maybe if we can figure out a way to combine in-person with remote, that might be the winning combination. But expect to hear from us on that prior to when we would expect to next meet. And Blake, do we know when we would expect to next meet with this group?
Yes, we were looking at September 9th because the week of August 30th, we were looking at doing our first public meetings. So we kind of wanted to keep that week open, but September 9th is the date that we were looking at for September.
Can you all chime in now if there's a problem with that date? That is a Thursday. It's not the first Thursday of the month. It's the second Thursday, but would that work for people?
Yes.
I will ask the same question to a couple of our absent members, but
Yeah, can I bring my dog?
of course.
She's gonna have separation anxiety.
We could meet at your house.
Right. She'll eat you.
Okay.
I kind of miss looking like the Brady Bunch. I always feel like the Brady Bunch whenever I do.
I know we're too many people to play Hollywood Squares. So September 9th at 3 p.m. Is that an objection to anyone? If it is, raise your hand or speak up. And otherwise we'll poll the remaining members of the group and hopefully we'll go with that time. And then the question is, can we meet in person or via hybrid or, and we'll check in with you about that.
Did you say 3 p.m.?
Yeah, does that work okay?
Well, there's the traffic thing.
You know what? If we meet in person, let's revisit the time. Thank you for mentioning that, Elizabeth. Yeah, we've been having late afternoon meetings, but if people are traveling, that might we might be advised to do something a little different. So tell you what, mark that afternoon, late afternoon off on your calendar, and we will figure out and get back to you real soon with the exact time. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Really great to see you all and appreciate your input today.
Thanks.
Thank you.